Tales of Aria immediately stuck out from other sets with major new changes. First, there were only 3 heroes instead of 4. The elemental talent was introduced, along with essence of earth, ice, and lightning, and there was to be no generics. Early critics of this set claimed that Tales would be the worst set by LSS because it would be entirely self-contained, and there would be no reason to buy this set if you weren't playing Briar, Lexi, or Oldtown. How did LSS combat this? By making Tales of Aria the best set of Flesh and Blood. Tales of Aria released when Flesh and Blood player base was greatly increasing. The previous set, Monarch, has seen a rise in players as restrictions were being lifted and TCG enjoyers were looking to play some card games. Major TCGs such as Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Held on to restrictions and have not yet returned to normal in-person play, which paved the way for players to try a new card game called Flesh and Blood. Monarch saw the introductions of many players to the game, so when Tales of Aria was released, it was for a lot of players, their first set. Like all draftable sets, the first format that rose to attention was limited. Tales had a very unique drafting styles when compared to other sets. Each hero was elemental with 2 elements, and each hero shared an essence with another hero. That is, earth, ice, or lightning. This meant that a drafter could draft elemental cards before drafting class-specific cards. In essence, this allowed drafters to pick their heroes at later points in the draft, as Tales allowed for a more open-style draft. Also, only having 3 heroes to choose from meant more cards to be shared, and a greater draft pool. Overall, the draft experience provided many positive reviews for LSS, and is considered by some to be the best draft set of Flesh and Blood. But it didn't stop there. Competitive play hit the scene shortly after release, with 2 callings, Dallas and Cincinnati, being Tales of Aria Limited with sealed into draft. The limited format was beginning to take shape, as arcane damage dealing Briar jumped to a lead with early success. An ice-dominating Lexi and a controlling Oldham would be drafted to counter this play later on. Overall, the limited format was a huge success in seeing each hero have a fair slice of the winner's pie. But another format was brewing with this new set. In ProQuest Cincinnati, what would nowadays be called a Battle Harden, Lexi was the most represented hero and was able to have a spot in the top 8. Alongside her were 2 players representing Briar. Neither Tales of Aria hero was able to secure the win, but it was apparent that there was to be an immediate presence of the new heroes in the classic constructed format. Announcing US Nationals. By now this secret was up, and it was quite apparent that not only was Briar going to be a part of the new CC meta, she was going to rule it. A whopping 32% of the representation at US Nash showed that she was the deck to beat. Variations between Cheerios, that is mostly zero cost attack actions or actions, and Earthly Channel Mount heroic decks were amongst Briar's arsenal of deck archetypes. 5 of the top 8 decks were Briar, with even Alexi being represented. In the end, Tariq Patel piloted Briar to win over Michael Fang's Chain in the finals. Meanwhile, at the calling, 3 more Briars made an appearance at top 8 along with a new face, Oldham, in the finals, and Michael Hamilton's Oldham knocked out Joel's Repta's Briar to win the event. If it wasn't clear then, it was clear now. Tales of Aria was here in a big way, with 2 heroes winning major events back to back. Skirmish season was next, and all 3 heroes found initial footing in the Blitz format. The dog days of Aria had came to an end as a new hero stirred up the meta that we'll come back to later. The year 2022 came, and with it a new set that would have immediate impacts on the classic constructed meta. Starvo was introduced with Everfest and would lead to a dominating presence that had not been seen since the days of Chain. A new BNR announcement came, as well as bringing about an errata to Briar's ability and banning of Ball Lightning. The wane of the Tales heroes came, with only Briar seeing some top 8s. And only being represented as 1 at that. In Blitz, where Starvo couldn't touch, Tales was still going strong, with Oldham jumping out to a lead, controlling the fast gameplays and slowing it down to his level. Viserai was the biggest winner in this Everfest Blitz meta, allowing for an OTK combo playstyle. However, at Battle Hardened Leads, the old man beat up on Matthew Folk's Viserai in the finals. That proved that even Viserai could be beaten. This too would slowly wane down as Viserai continued on a tear and would outcompete Oldham by sheer numbers. Briar was still holding on, but once Uprising came, she would disappear with the arrival of Iysander, and Lexi hasn't been heard from since the beginning. Eventually, Starvo LL'd faster than any hero ever, along with Chain and very soon to follow Prism. The Uprising set had also just been released to change this classic constructed meta even further. Vi took off immediately to replace the LL hero's domination and quickly became the deck to beat. Briar and Oldhim found ways to come back to relevancy in this new meta, but Lexi could not race or consistently controlled the Draconic Ninja. Viscera had also LL'd from the Blitz format, which allowed for Oldhim to take the top spot and be the hero to beat. In Battlehardened Baltimore, Anthony Nguyen, Oldhim beat Jack Stoney Ira to secure more Living Legend points for the old man. A week later, and the second Pro Tour had begun, with Briar once again commanding the field with a 23% representation. 4 Briars made it all the way to top 8 with a Briar mirror match in the finals. Matthew Folks bested Bartosz Ziemba to gain Briar her biggest points in the Living Legends board yet. From here, it would seem that a new surge of Tales of Aria's strength was to come. Briar had become a boogeyman now, with Prism being LL'd and Oldhim seeing success against an aggro-heavy field. However, there was about to be a new reason why Tales of Aria was a good set to buy. Introducing Icelander, and more specifically, Bullander. Michael Hamilton surprised the scene with his iteration of Icelander sporting big attack actions such as Wounded Bull and Fiendl's Fighting Spirit. However, what made this deck impact Tales of Aria was its use of majestic ice cards. No longer was it just Oldhim, Briar, or Lexi to benefit from Tales, but now Icelander too, as she used 3 Channel Lake Fridges and 3 Blizzards as key staples to the deck. Michael Hamilton's Bullander not only took US Nats that year, but also the Worlds event as well. Oldhim and Briar saw an overwhelming amount of wins that national season, adding even more points to the board. Under Michael Fang, Oldhim would take Battlehardened Minneapolis and another victory with Joel Repta on Oldhim in a mirror match in the finals of Battlehardened Denver. Tales of Aria looked stronger than ever going into Worlds. Vi was the most represented hero in CC at Worlds, with Oldhim and Briar to follow. For the Blitz portion, Icelander and Oldhim were the first and second in representation. 2 Briars, 2 Icelanders, and 1 Oldhim made top 8 for Worlds, and as mentioned before, Michael Hamilton's Bullander won over Christopher Iali's Briar. With the rising popularity of Vi and Icelander came their bans. Vi was hit particularly hard and hasn't made waves since. However, Icelander still to this day is a force to reckon with. The rest of 2022 saw a general off-season of Flesh and Blood, with the exception of a couple Battlehardens. One to note was Battlehardened Singapore, where Lexi got her first major points in winning the finals, against a Bravo no less. Congrats to Danny for her slow introduction into her dominant year. The start of 2023 saw ProQuest Season 3 that allowed for Oldhim and Briar to inch ever closer to the Living Legend leaderboard. It had become the season of ice, as both Oldhim and Icelander became the deck to beat. This had ultimately caused Briar to sink into the depths, being controlled by ice. To her benefit, however, despite being oh so close to hitting Living Legend, she did not reach the 1,000 point mark and was still legal to play in Classic Constructed. Following this season of icy dominance, more bannings came to even the playing field. Oldhim lost his beloved Winter's Well, and Icelander lost her Amulet of Ice. Tales of Aria was hit again, but her heroes remained strong. Calling Indianapolis was the first major event after the bans, and Oldhim represented 5 spots, with Icelander represented 2, and even a Briar there as well. Michael Hamilton's Bullander was once again victorious, out-icing Charles Dunn's Oldhim in the finals. A small lull in success occurred afterwards, with Icelanders and Oldhims featuring in top 8s, until Michael Fang proved Oldhim was capable to win the whole thing again at Battle-Hardened Charlotte, defeating Drew Pestrel's Icelander. The next event was big for Tales of Aria. In Battle-Hardened Richmond, the results of the finals seemed like clockwork, something we were already used to. Pat Eshley's Oldhim won the mirror against Trenton McBride's. However, this top 8 saw the emergence of Lexi. Matthew McInnes showed the world that the new Outsider set had a lot to offer the Ranger, and that her time in the limelight was to come. Just before Pro Tour 3 came the skirmish season that would see Oldhim and Icelander LL from the format. Both were hit with bans prior, but both were able to hold on and show the power of ice. Pro Tour 3 was finally here, and with it, our first hero from Tales to achieve Living Legend. For the first time, Lexi was heavily represented in the meta alongside Oldhim. In the top 8, 4 Lexis and 1 Oldhim were present. Michael Fang's Oldhim was able to outlast the new Battle Mage Dromai piloted by Mara Ferris. Oldhim, just like Briar, was nearing an end to his legality in the Classic Constructed format. Road to Nationals followed shortly after and saw many points earned for Lexi. She had established herself in the meta as a top tier deck and was also very popular to play. Briar earned herself a few points but reached just shy of attaining Living Legend. Oldham time, however, had finally come to an end. With many Road to Nationals wins, as well as Pablo Pintor's victory with Oldham at Battleharn Antwerp and Nick's Butcher victory at Calling Singapore, Oldham reached well over 1,000 points to become a living legend. He was not only the first Tales of Aria hero to do so, but also the first hero in Flesh and Blood to reach living legend in both Classic Constructed and Blitz. It was time for the old man to finally rest. During this time, Lexi was submitting points onto the leaderboard with a win under Nico Roth in Battleharn Metropole Rue and under Brody Spurlock in Battleharn Los Angeles in a mirror match for the finals. At this point, it was very clear that with Oldham gone, it was going to be very hard to stop Lexi moving forward. However, with Oldham leaving did not mean that Ice was gone. Rhea Adams not only beat Lexi in the finals at Battleharden Cincinnati, but also won again in the Battleharden Chicago with a very icy Icelander deck that focused less on attack actions and more on arcane damage mixed with ice disruption. Samuel Braveman further showed icy dominance with a calling win in Birmingham, besting Pablo's Pintor's Bravos in the final. Ice was very much still in use for the Classic Constructed meta. Battleharn Atlanta showed a shift in Lexi decks to counter the ice plays, which led to great success, showing 4 spots in the top 8. Taylor Crawford's Lexi outshot McInnes's Lexi in the finals of this one. Now, on to US Nationals, where once again, we lose another Tales of Aria hero. The meta leading into US National developed Lexi, Dromai, and Icelander as the top tier heroes. The meta percentages reflected this as well, but when the top 8 came, an old hero showed herself once more. Briar had 2 spots in the top 8 in a sea of Lexis and Dromais, as well as Icelanders. Despite being easily disrupted by Icelander's ice cards and outshot by Lexi's Voltaire, a defensive Briar emerged from the meta to surprise and slow down heroes while making embodiments of Earth with efficient attacks. Charles Dunn secured his victory at US Nationals with Briar, beating Evan Herndon's Lexi in the finals and giving Briar more than enough points to obtain Living Legend. And as Charles Dunn was piloting Briar in the Nationals, a familiar face was piloting Lexi at the Calling. Lexi's original pilot, Yuki Lee Bender, was able to secure her win in Calling Las Vegas. The season of Lexi was here, as she dominated Battleharns and ProQuest throughout. Lexi continued to wrap up the points she needed with Battleharn Columbus win with Brody Spurlock, Battleharn Toulouse win with Joseph Ginn, Battleharn Milwaukee with Evan Herndon, and finally Battleharn St. Louis with Lucas Oswald. With her commanding presence, Lexi joined her fellow Tales hero in Living Legend. And in just over 2 years, Tales of Aria saw all of her heroes obtain Living Legend in Classic Constructed and even one in Blitz, the only set to do so yet. Tales of Aria may be revered by some and infamous by others, but it cannot be denied the power that the set has brought to Flesh and Blood. The fact that this happened along with being a great draft set is why this is my favorite set to date. Thanks to all who have made it this far, and congratulations to all who made the history with the Heroes of Tales. I hope you all enjoyed this video, as it is different from the rest of our content, but a ton of fun to make. Thanks again, and keep on vabbing.